Good morning and welcome. My name is Michele Jutrisa and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stamping Up here in Australia. And how are you today? So thank you very much for joining me. Please jump on, say hello, let me know where you're from. It's always great to see people jumping on and introducing themselves. So I'm planning on doing a scrapbook layout today, as I do every Saturday morning, and I have everything all planned and all for you, but just in the last 5 minutes I've come up with a little bit of an idea, so I'm sort of like having a bit of a quick trim of some paper here and to do a little bit of die cutting with, and we might see how this works on this layout. So let me show you what we're going to be doing. So let me just pop that away over there. I've still got a little bit of die cutting to finish, but anyway, let's put my camera down and let's get started. Now I'm going to just change that, bring that out a little bit. Sorry, you can see my messy desk to some point here, and let me bring in the photos that I'm going to be using today. So these are some photos, and the story behind these photos are this is my grandmother and this is my aunt, her daughter, this is my father's sister, and my Uncle Jake, who she married sometime in the 1960s. So these are the only 3 photos that I have got of this particular wedding. I believe my father has got more, but these are the only ones that I have. This gentleman here, I don't know really who he is. I have been told that he is possibly my grandmother's cousin. So, and I can't even give you a name on that one. So anyway, these are the photos I want to work on. I've had these photos hanging around for, oh, excuse me, for quite a long time. And I've decided that today's the day we're going to work on them. Now, as I have been working on pulling out all the stash, getting rid of our stash that we have hoarded away, I'm continuing with this. I have had this paper and everything put away for quite a while. Now, this is from the beautiful Gallery Designer Series paper, and the papers I'm wanting to use are this one here. Okay, so I've already cut it up to how I want to use it, but what I wanted to show you was there's 2 sheets of it there. So I wanted to use these 6x6s, and it's not the easiest thing to use, and I'm going to just pop my photos away over there for the moment. I'm just going to make sure I don't lose them. You would not believe how many times I've had to reprint those photos because I keep losing them. But I wanted to do a strip of this paper, but I also wanted to use it so then I wasn't showing too much where that join is. And as you can see, when I put those 2 together, I sort of have, you can see this line because this flower here sort of finishes off in mid-air, but both of these 2 pieces of paper are in the same direction. Okay, so because it's an all-over paper, I thought it was actually quite easy to play with in turning one of these sheets around a bit. Excuse me, I've still got this terrible cough that I've had for months. Okay, so what I want to try to do is reconfigure this paper somehow that joint is not going to be as predominant and not stand out as much. Even though these flowers do have a sort of a direction, like the heads, the flowers are facing upwards, I decided it didn't matter too much if I turned this around. So if I turned this around in this direction, I've got these flowers going that way, but it still semi-works. So I kept on turning this around until I was happy. That doesn't work because this flower here is cut off, and you know you're going to see a bit more of a join. But when I eventually turned it around this way, I really it meant that I had an area here with no flowers, but it also meant too that it looks more natural, more meant to be, because that area there is all pretty much all the same colour, even though we've got bits here cut off. But if I put my photos over the top of that, you're not going to notice that as much. So what I would suggest you to do is play with these papers and turn them around. Sorry, things are just falling down over here. Turn them around until you get them into a position that you really like and you're really happy with. So I've sort of decided that that's the configuration that I'm going to be using, and I've trimmed my paper down to suit that configuration. So let me just bring in all my papers so we can start layering our layer up. And as I said before, what I am trying to do is use up my stash. So even though these aren't current papers, you may have these in your stash, or you may have something similar that you can use. My layout is fairly simple, and I've pulled the colours out of these papers here. So I've pulled out the Secret Sea and the Lost Lagoon for my card base. So what I've done, I've already pre-cut a lot of this just to make the day a little bit easier. And I've got a piece of Secret Sea here, which I've already gutted. Now I'm just going to, I've got to buy some magnets. This is a mat that I've had for a very, very long time. I was going to go and grab my fridge magnets to see if they would work, but I might use these. These are magnets I've got. I just want to pop these on the corner so they will stay. This is a magnetic mat that I got, as I said, a long time ago, which is a basic grey, if anyone remembers basic grey. They were a company that had beautiful papers. I think you can still buy their magnets that you can use on pages and 3D items. I know you can still get them around the place, but I don't think they're doing their papers and everything anymore. But this is one of their mats. So I'm just going to pop that on the corner there, and this one on the corner down here, just to hold that in place a little bit. And I might even use that to help me position where I'm going to put my next layer. So let me pop that into that corner properly. And this one here, I'm just lining it up. So I've got my Secret Sea piece there, which I've said I've already pre-gutted. And now let me just put my chats on. Hello, Deborah, how are you? And the other colour I said that we're using is Lost Lagoon, and I'm using the light side of that. Now, I've already pre-inked that around there, and I'm just going to fit that in there and see if that fits in nicely. It should do, because that's going to give me a good guide as to, it's like sitting up a bit high somewhere. Because I'm going to pop some adhesive on this in a minute, and we're going to pop that on there. So that is roughly the position I want that in. That's a little bit not quite right there. I've never used these magnets for doing this part, so we'll see how we go. So, okay, so I'm going to build up my base by adhering this down. So let me just, I had a bit of tack on there yesterday. So let me grab my seal, and we're going to pop a little bit of this around my page. Now, as I said, I've had these photos hanging around for so long trying to work out, I was mainly trying to work out the layout I was going to use for these photos and with these papers, because I knew I wanted to use the papers, but I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do it. And it wasn't until yesterday I thought, I'm just going to go back to basics and did things a little bit differently. I decided, instead of worrying about the designer series paper, I worried about my embellishments and worked out what embellishments I'm going to use, because there was a stamp set that went with those particular design series papers, but I'm hoping I've got that nice and square there. I don't think I quite have. Okay, let me just see if I can lift this up a bit. And I'm just going to have to eyeball this a little bit, I think. There we go. That looks better. I think I might be slightly out on one side, but I'm not going to quibble over that at the moment. Could be just the way I've got it sitting on my mat, but I'm going to sit that back into there. Yeah, so I was worrying about where and how I was going to position these, what other elements I was going to use with it, whether I was going to use the stamp set that went with these papers or not, and how I was going to use it. And that was making me procrastinate on this for a long time. It's all been sitting in a box probably for about 3 or 4 months. So yesterday I decided, okay, let's remove this for the moment. I know I want to use it, but let's remove this for the moment and let's start just looking at our photos. So I've got my photos there. I am going to use a flip flap for this bottom photo because I don't necessarily want him on top. I'm not doing a double layout because I don't feel like I've got enough photos. I didn't feel this photo here was big enough to warrant a whole page on its own and then these two on a different page. So I thought, well, these are the ones that are important to me because it's my aunt, my grandmother, and my aunt's husband, my uncle. But he is part of the story and I love the look on my aunt's face there. So I decided, okay, if I'm going to pop a flip flap there, then when I find the details of this, because I've got no idea what, I know it was in 1960, around about 1960 that they got married, but until I can find out some more details, I can't do my journaling. So I've got a spot there to do my journaling when I work that out. So that's where I sort of started. Then I decided, okay, what am I going to use if I'm not going to use the stamps that particularly go with that paper? What other stamps and so forth that I've got can I use? Because I also wanted a title, and it's whether I'm going to print a title, print and cut a title, or do a title with using one of the alphabets that we've got or what. And then I remembered this one. So this is another one that is out of my stash. So again, I'm not quite sure whether this is still available or not, but it is a relatively, well, it's probably about 6 months old, 8 months old, but it's a really great one for weddings and so forth. And I do love this big flower. So what I've done is I didn't want to pull in any more white. I do have my photos matted on white because I do love my photos matted on white. I decided to do a matte underneath my photos. So there's the matte that I'm going to use. And I decided that to bring in some basic beige. So what I've done here is I've stamped a lot of these flowers. That's that big flower I said I really liked out of this. So I've stamped a lot of these on the darker side of the basic beige because the photos, even though they're in a black and white, it's not a real white. It's sort of like shades of different greys and so forth. And I think there's enough on here that I can build up embellishments with that. The other thing that I've done is I've stamped also from the same set. I've stamped some leaves. With this stamps, you've got double leaves, you've got a large flower, you've got a small flower, you've got the double leaves, and you've got some single leaves. And then I just got my dauber, or actually a blending brush, and the Secret Sea, and I sponged on some Secret Sea onto my leaves, just because I wanted to bring a little bit more dimension to my layout rather than having them all in the basic beige and just stamped. The other thing that I have done too is also with this particular set here, you have this one here, the Beautifully Celebrated, which is out of the same bundle. You've got the dies in here, which have got these shapes as well, but you've got this little one here, which is a great little filler. Now, this morning, while I was sort of putting things together, I just also felt like it might have needed something more. So I've pulled out this foil. Now, this foil here is from another part out of my stash. I can't even tell you how many years old. It's a couple of years, and it's from the Love You Always foil sheets. Now, I'm not a great one in using a lot of foils and things, but I had bought this, and it's like a champagne-y type colour, and I thought, well, that would work out quite well. It's not a real silver. It's got that real champagne tone, so it's going to work in with the basic beige. So I've just cut a couple of little fine strips in that. And what I thought I might do now before I start too much is do some of these little filler pieces in that as well. So then we've got a little bit more of that happening in our photos. So I'm just going to move these out of the road. But first off, I do need to get that die out. So I've done a lot of the prep work already because, I mean, I don't really need you guys sitting here looking at me going and ahhing for 2 hours. So I did all my and ahhing last night or yesterday afternoon. Let's just move all of this. I'll just move the whole thing out of the road, and we'll bring up my cut and emboss small one, and let's cut out a few of these foil flowers. Now, I'm sorry if I'm all over the place a little bit in what I'm doing, but I'm trying to sort of explain to you my thought process in a lot of this. I don't want a huge amount of this, but I do want a few of these. Whether we use them or not is another thing, but at least we'll have them. And I think they will actually look quite good because we want a little bit of elegance in our wedding photos. And this album will be going into my heritage album as well. So it's just going to take me a little while just to cut these out. I hope you've all had a good morning anyway. And I've had a great morning so far. My son, who's moved from England, rang me this morning. So for the last hour, I've been chatting with him and not really sort of concentrating too much on this. So I was glad to have most of this pre-organised, except for this idea. So it was good to chat with him. But hopefully it won't take us too long to do this. So what have you got planned for your day today, Deborah? Any scrapbooking? Any fun activities? Going for a drive somewhere with family or just hanging around the house? Sort of a funny day here. I don't even know what it's like outside. I know it was cold last night, but just want to do probably about half a dozen of these. Much have you done? No, I haven't done any more on my album about me as yet. I haven't forgotten it. We've still got to work on that. But I'm at the point that I need to do a lot of journaling. So I've got to, and I might even actually sit down and do that today. I want to add into that album lists like lists, like all the towns that I've lived in. Like my father worked in the bank, and when I was a child, we moved around every 2 years, which is the go when you work in, when you used to work in the bank system, because your promotions and that were based on, I think it was based on mainly your moves, like how many, you work through position by position by, you started off as a bank teller, and as you sort of went to a different town, then you might have moved up to a senior bank teller. And by the time we got to a certain number of moves, Dad had actually gone up to a point that he was an accountant. So, and then by the time he was an accountant, the system started changing. People started going more to universities, and people who were doing university degrees were getting those jobs, and that's when he left banking. So we moved around a lot for Dad to go up the ladder. Hi, Nicole. How are you? So I probably lived in about 8 towns and so forth. So I want to sort of, and I don't have photographs of all those towns, and it's like, well, that's probably, but I do want to write a list of all of those. So I sort of got to work out some cards, and I'm going to use Pocket Pages for those, and I will be sharing it. But, things like that, things that are not something you would necessarily scrapbook about, but things that might be relevant to your album about you. So that's where I'm up to with that album. So I will get back onto it. I do have lots more photos to scrapbook because I was in scouting with my sons when they were younger. I was a district leader and I earned my wood badge. So I've got photos of me being presented with my wood beads and so forth, which I want to document in that album. I've also did the Miss Large and Lovely beauty contest, believe it or not. Before I had children. I think that's enough of those. So I want to grab 1 or 2 photos of that and scrapbook that as well. So I still do have a few scrapbook pages to do, but I've got to do some of these other little tedious bits which you guys don't need to sit and watch me do. We've made up those pockets for that album, so I've still got to find photos of recipes and so forth to pop in there as well. So I haven't forgot it, and we will be getting back to it. It was meant to be Junie. Well, you sent me down a track, Deborah. That's fine. So let me go back to try and do some crafting. Going to Junie on Monday. I'd love to go back to Junie. I haven't been there for a long time. I'm so sad that Monte Cristo is up for sale and is no longer, I'm assuming it's no longer a museum. That was a fascinating place. But I want to go to the chocolate and licorice factory one day in Junie. So, and Nicole and I spent last night scrapping together via Zoom. So it was good to meet her. And so how's your morning been, Nicole? Yeah, I'm looking forward to, because we were talking about this while I was doing it last night. So, I'm looking forward to getting this all together as well. So anyway, we've got our base pages down. So I started this today by talking about using my 6x6 papers. And as I said, I worked out that I wanted to butt these two together because I just felt that showed less of the join than if I had half a floral or something there. So what I want to do is I want that around about half an inch, and I'm using my grid lines on here, in from that edge there. But then I've also decided, and I'm going to overlap my paper a little bit because this Lost Lagoon piece here is 11.5 inches square. So I've gutted my Secret Sea and left about a 1-inch border all the way around. Sitting in bed, lucky you. So that's what I've done so far. We're going to pop those there. Now, the idea of this, and I may have to just trim these down a bit, is I'm thinking of popping that on there. But I've done 2 of them, and I don't think I like it on both. I think it's got to go just on one, but I want to put it on that inside, I think. And then when my photos go over the top, so I'm going to remove that photo because we don't need that for the moment. It's just going to have that little bit poking out. So it's just going to be a little bit there. So it's a very, very simple layout. Initially, my thoughts were going to be using lots of different papers and so forth. But really, when it came down to it, because, I mean, the fact that the photos are black and white, you can put any colours with it. I mean, I don't even know what the theme was colour-wise to her wedding. I know because I actually have that tiara, the headpiece that she's got there, because that was her mother's headpiece, and I've got that. And it is what they called orange blossom. It was made out of wax, and it has now got this actually silvery covering on it, which is like peeling off a little bit, and it does remind me a lot of this champagne color type foil on it. Oh, chocolate and whiskey factory. Now that sounds nice. Thank you, Nicole. So I just want to keep this fairly simple, and then we're going to bring in these flowers. Now, as I said, all I've done is I've stamped these on the dark side of the basic beige two-tone, and I've stamped it in Secret Sea. And this photo here was taken in the car, and you can see a little bit of the car there. So I am going to cover some of that up like so. The title I'm going to pop across here, and I'm going to use from this particular stamp set, I'm going to use This Calls for a Celebration, and that's going to go up there. Now, I've done another layout which was of my great aunt from the same family, and I've just got a funny feeling that this layout is going to end up very much similar in some ways to that one. But that's okay. I mean, it's a layout that works, and I'm keeping it quite simple because, as I was saying before, I could have used lots of different papers because it is black and white photos and they're not going to clash. But this is a very busy paper that I've decided to use. So no matter what elements I put with it, I want them to be simple so it works in with it and not clashes with it. So my idea is I'm going to have 2 of these flowers in here. And one big one up there just to hide that little bit of black, but also bring that design across. I'm going to I've also stamped the smaller flower, so I want to bring those down a little bit so they're going to be in the middle. And we'll glue all these down once I've worked all this out. That's going to go there on that side. I'm a very symmetrical person. I like things to be, you know, like I'll either start with 1 flower with 2 smaller flowers on the outside, or like this one here, 2 flowers. And that's by having these 2 big flowers, it's sort of elongating this area because I want my floral piece to be within that size. If I wanted it smaller, I could take one of those out, bring that one in the middle, and then have these 2 on the sides like that. But I'm going to do that sort of thing over here. So I want to have the 2 flowers in here so I can sort of make it quite full looking, because, you know, if you can imagine a bouquet type of effect, we're going to have that one in there, that one in there. But keeping these quite plain means that they're not going to clash with these because they don't belong to this, but it's still a flower, it's still a rose type design. And then we're going to pop in some of these, okay, some of these leaves that I've stamped in the same way, but then using my blending brush added colour. And as you can see, I've sort of tried to make it dark on the tips and brought it down lighter. And some of these are going to go in and around here to fill out this area. Now, this is where those foil pieces can come in handy. Just take a bit of those pieces out, because I was sort of thinking of bringing in, and I could do both of these, some of these pieces in here as well, just to give it a little bit of lightness to that layout. So whether I do just the foil, and that will also then tie back into the foil that I've got there in the middle, and we'll do that the same there. So that's my thought. Now, things can tend to change as I'm working along, but at least I've got an idea and a process that I'm going to be working. So let me just pull this apart a little bit, and let's start adhering all of this down. So I do need to trim down this piece of foil. I need to take 1/2 inch off the length of that, and I need to finish matting these. So let's pop all of these over to here. And now when I pop these photos here onto my mat, I have left probably a little bit more distance in between there than I would normally have done, but that's just so then when I pop this on and marry up the edges of my flip flap, that I'm going to be able to have enough room in between my photos for this to flip up. So those photos there need to come down quite a bit more in that pocket, because I really want that to come right down. But anyway, you'll see that as it comes along. The other thing I've done with this too, I haven't put adhesive right at the top of this photo, because I want to be able to slip that into there. I'm going to slip my flap in behind that photo, and that's going to marry up like that. I prefer to do that and cut a slit in my page protector later than actually attaching this onto my page. The reason for that is because I'm not throwing this into, I haven't worked out the order yet my album is going to be, and by not, if I attach this onto my page protector, then I'm stuck with that on that page protector, and it means that whether I have my photo on the left, on one side of it, or the other side, I'm stuck with it. Whereas if I have that into there, I don't need to cut the page protector until I'm ready to work out where it's going to go inside my album. So it just gives me a little bit of flexibility. So for the time being, I'm going to glue that down. So I hope I haven't confused everybody by that. If you have any questions about what I'm doing, please ask. Now, I need to just put a bit of adhesive on here. I tend to like to use my tape rather than liquid glue when I'm scrapbooking. And when I do card making, I will revert back to my liquid. So let's just finish matting this. So I've got a mat of about 1/8 of an inch going all the way around those photos. So, or 1.5, try to think. I allow 3/8 of an inch bigger than my photo width and length when I mat. So it's probably about 3/16. And then my Secret C mat is about 1/4 of an inch wider. So that's just that little bit bigger, and that's just the mats I like to work with, and I work on basically the same thing when I'm doing my card making. So with this one here, I'm going to adhere this one down first, and I'm just going to again just pop a little bit of adhesive on there, and I'm taking this around about, it's probably around about 1/2 inch in on the Lost Lagoon I have already inked all the way around my Lost Lagoon, and that's actually something I was going to do and I haven't done. So let's just quickly lift that up. I wanted to ink around this as well. So let's just very quickly, using a dauber, just ink around. Now, I don't need to ink that edge. I'm only wanting to do these edges here, and I'm just going around the very edge. If you do like to run it across your stamp pad, just be very aware that the foam stamp pads, or not, yeah, these are foam. You could very easily cut your stamp pad if you just run it across. So I like to use a dauber. I'm just going to, since I've got adhesive on this, I'm going to line this up. I've now inked around that. So I think that's going to, I haven't pushed that down completely as yet. And then again with this one here, I'm just going to go around the top and two sides because I don't want to highlight that join. That's the reason why I was saying before, turn your paper around until you find an area where your joins are less likely to be seen. And sometimes too, it's not even just butting. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Let me put some adhesive on here first. I am going to have a bit of an overlap because this paper here is only 11.5 and these are 6 inches in length. But that's okay. It's just going to overlap there like that. What I was just going to say, if you've got your two papers and you're trying to work out which ones are where the joins are going to work best, don't be afraid of moving this along a little bit. As long as you can cut off a bit here and you've got enough in this width here, like I think I've got about, what have I got, 4 inches there. So if I had to move that along there and cut that there, as long as I still had that 4 inches in that spot there, it would still work. So I'd be cutting sort of like 2 inches off this side and 2 inches off there, as long as I had a join here that looked good. So just play around with it a bit. Hello, Sue, how are you? So that's my pieces there. And now this piece here, which we need still to trim down, is going to go on there like that. Now, I may have that slightly bowed, but that's okay. I think it might be slightly out in that middle there. So I didn't measure it. I'm just eyeballing everything. So let me just see if I can just bring that across a little bit, not much. That's better. That's sitting nice. I was just trying to go around a curve. Okay, so we need to take about 1/2 inch off this, my little foil piece. We'll close up my ink pad before I put my hand into it. So that's one thing I don't want to do. And that's 1 inch. That's about 1/2 inch there. Let's see if I've got that right. Yep, that's going to go there nicely. So I'm going to use my liquid glue for this part, just for the fact that sometimes the foils can also too be a little bit glossy on the back. And plus it's quite narrow. And I'm just going to pop that along in a few places. And then that can slip in right next to that. And just pull that down a little bit there. So that's going to look good, just to give it that little bit of a silver accent. So we're going to pop those now back onto there. So actually what I do want to do next is actually stamp our title, and that will allow us then to be able to see where these photos are going to be. Now, I do want my title to be somewhere up the top, so I'm just going to grab a pencil and I'm going to bring that down a little bit and just draw a line there because I want it in that section up there. Now I'm going to use my stamp positioner for this. I'm just going to lift this up. So I've already popped that on there, but I'm not quite sure whether that's going to be exactly the right spot. I'm going to pop this on my positioner, butting it right up to those little dots along the edge there. And that's going to give me that straight edge. And I'm just going to see where I have got that. Now I can, at this point in time, I can actually move this across and position this exactly where I want it to go. So let me just move that out of the road. And I'll put some magnets on this in a second, but I've got this already at the height that I want. Actually, I could probably take it down, maybe a little bit more. So I'm going to just peel this off. And I'm using the grid on my positioner to line this up. So I'm just wanting, so let's just have a look and see how that's going to go, because I can see my pencil mark there. So, and I put that a little bit lower so I don't have to rub it out. And I've got that lined up probably about 1/2 inch from the top of the Lost Lagoon. And that's going to work out just fine. And it's about 3/4 inch from this side edge here. So I'm happy with that position. So let me grab my magnets. I keep them here on the side of my trolley so I don't lose them. So let's just lift this up gently, and we're going to pop one magnet. I'll flip those over. One there and one over there. And I'm just going to pop one of these on here for good measure. That'll just help hold all that into place so we don't get any movement. Double check that I'm happy. Let's move this one down a little bit, just so it's not going to interfere with my stamping. And let's bring in, so I'm going to stamp this in the Secret C. So I'm just going to add my ink onto here, give that a really good coverage. Of course, with the stamp positioner, I can come back and re-ink that if need be. Okay, so let's give that a good push down. Just hold it down for a couple of minutes or seconds. Just let that ink bond into that. Let's have a look and see what we think. I need to re-ink that again. Definitely in the middle. So this is going to be a really good test to see how well this positioner works, because we want everything to line up. And let's go again. Give it a little bit more of a press in that middle area there. Beautiful. Really happy with that. Now, I'm not going to worry about cleaning that off right now. I'm just going to pop that to one side and I'll do that later. We can take all of these off. And pop that away as well for the moment. So let's just turn this around again and position this again on here, and I'll just pop these magnets on just to hold it all nicely in place while we keep working. So that is going to go over the top, and that's allowing me now to see where I want that to be positioned. Okay, so let's add some adhesive onto the back of this. Whoops. It's only a new one and it's playing up on me already. Really sometimes got to make sure you're using your seal flat. I think the trick of it is keeping that little roller area there flat against your paper and not at an angle, because we seem to get a much better roll at an angle, on a flat rather than angled. So let's just pop that onto here. Now I want to put a few flowers onto this side here, so I don't want to go too far this way because those flowers are nice and big. But I think that's going to be right about there. So we'll give that a bit of a press down there. And let's start positioning these ones. So I'm going to do these ones first, the big ones. And I'm going to pop a little bit of adhesive. Now, I like to, when I'm doing flowers and I'm going to be tucking things in and around, I only put my adhesive in the middle. I don't know whether you can actually see that. And I like to still use my seal for this sort of thing. I don't like using dimensionals too much because this is I don't want to make my album too bulky, and these are going to sit sort of reasonably flat anyway. But the reason why I put my adhesive just in the middle, I can very easily tuck things around. So I'm going to pop one of these about there. I haven't pushed that down yet, so if I need to move it, I can. I think I'm moving that across again. And then this one here is going to go, position that about there. So that's my two in the middle, that one there, and now I'm going to pop these little ones. So I'm going to build these little ones here up on the sides. I need 4 of those, so I need another one. Again, I'm just going to pop a little bit of adhesive in the middle of each one. And then layer these ones up over the top. And I've got these little ones slightly angled in, and then again over here. Now I'm putting those on top. You could go underneath if you wanted to, but I don't want it to get sort of lost too much. And then we're going to use our leaves. Now I've got some big leaves here, and I also have done some smaller ones, and I don't think I need to show you how I've done them. As I said, I just used my blending brush and using the Secret Sea ink, just blended it on and kept my depth of my colour at the ends and brought it down lighter at the bottom. So let's just work out where these are going to go. Definitely want that one to go there. So again, I'm just going to pop adhesive in the middle. I'll pop one on this end and one over here. Now, that's going to be my road there. Do need probably to bring this flower here up a little bit more, or I bring this one in. So let's just bring him in a little bit more there. Then this one here can get tucked in. Now I don't mind bringing that down there a little bit further. This one here, I can't go any further than that up, but this one here I can bring it down a little bit more if I wanted to. And then we're going to do the same with our other little cluster of flowers over here. So I just want a little bit of that foil poking out there. I don't want too much, but I do want some of that. And then this one here is going to come down and help hide that join a little bit. So we're starting really to build that up quite nicely. So again, we're going to have got these pieces here to add in. And again, this is just going to bring in that foil again and just keep everything sort of cohesive and linked. Now I'm going to add liquid glue onto these. And I just like to add a little bit on the ends. And I'm just going to, again, just tuck that in. Now we could put some of the Secret C in, but I'm going to start with this one and just sort of see how this looks. Pop that one in there. And then we're going to pop a couple over on this side as well. So I'm going to pop one into underneath there a little bit. I don't know whether I'm going to need the Secret C ones, because when I scrapbook, what I'm always looking for is I want my photos to be predominant. I don't want all of this, the clusters overpowering. Sometimes you look at a layout and the first thing you're looking at is all the beautiful clusters and everything around and all the colours and everything, and you don't necessarily look at your photos. I want to see my photos first and my clusters later. So I've got a little bit of a dip here, so whether I pop in another one of these foil pieces, now I've got a little bit of a habit that I can put a little bit too much in, and I've got to remind myself that less is always more. I don't want that sticking straight out because then it's just going to look, I want it looking like it's meant to be. It's like baby's breath, and how you just sort of pop that in amongst your flowers just to fill in those little holes. So whether that sort of goes in there just to fill in that hole, not to necessarily bring this up more level, but just as a filler. Now I'm just going to poke these in. So I haven't glued that one in yet because I'm not quite sure. I'm going to just put those in and just sort of have a look to see what I think. I just don't know whether they're really necessary. I think they're sort of, it's just going to get lost over there. I think I might leave those out. Now that one there, I might just pop that in, but I'm going to pop it in here rather than just to sort of, as I said, to fill that area in there a bit and define between the two flowers rather than sort of add extra height. And you could easily do something like this with using vellum as well. So I actually think that might be around about done. I'm not a great one for putting sequins and so forth on cards, and nor am I on scrapbook pages. I'm not a lumpy, bumpy scrapbooker. I am very aware that if you put things that have got height, like with this paper, it came with really nice embellishments, and I do really love them, but they are a metal and they are very heavy. If I have a photo on my page prior and I have a little bit too much embellishments or whatever, it can tend to indent your photos on your opposite pages. So I am very aware of that. But I'm thinking that is about done. I mean, normally you try to look for 3 areas for clusters. I probably could put maybe a little one down here, but it'd be only a very small one if I did one. Let's just have a little bit of a play, because I've got quite a large floral element here, quite a large one here, but I don't want to cover up too much of this paper, because that is also part of what I was trying to do. I'll grab one of these and we'll have a look, and then you can tell me what you think, whether you think it needs it or not, because I do know that 3 is always better than 2, but that's just keeping it like a very, very small. Do we need that or not? Do we have that in there or remove that? What do you think? I know I've got a white line here, but we've got to remember that, because this is another thing too, this photo is going to sit here on top. I don't want anything that's going to, whatever I put there has to go underneath, so it's not going to. Do we use that one or not use that one? What do you guys think? Nicole, you're telling me you love it. You love it just like it is now. Sue, what do you think? You don't think I need it? No, I don't think I do either, Nicole. I think that's enough, because you've got enough length down here, and it is only a 1-page layout. I am keeping my options open a little bit, in the fact that a lot of the journaling and everything I won't get until I go and visit my parents again. But I sort of have been told by my mother there could be more photos. So that's why I've sort of only got this floral piece on one side. I am going to keep the other florals, because if I do need to make a companion layout, I may do another one over here and flip this around. So all these little bits and pieces, I mean, even though this page is finished as is, I want it to look like it could be a singular page, but I also want it to look like that if I need to add another page, I can add another page, and maybe another small cluster over on this side, and another, like a bookend type effect with the pages over here. So I have got the 2-inch strip that I cut off this one here. I may be able to use it again somewhere over there, because it could be, well, it won't be until Christmas time before I get to my parents again. So to find out if there is any more photos. But I think really as a layout on its own, that works. And I'm really happy with the way of using, even though this particular stamp set didn't go with this, there's still flowers, and it still, I think, works in quite well together. I don't know whether you can tell, but my grandmother's hat is all, it looks like it's made up of lots and lots of little flowers. So and I do know this headpiece is all like little leaves, like a crown sitting up. But anyway, I'm really happy with that. So thank you very much for joining me. I am going to, as I said, I am going to get back to my album All About Me. I've just got to work out and find the photos for the next layouts and work out what I'm going to be using with that, and probably spend today doing a lot of journaling and list making for it. So thank you very much. I hope this has inspired you to get in and grab what you've got in your own stash and to create something with what you've got, rather than just buying more and more product and not using what we've got. So thank you. I hope you have a lovely day. Have a lovely weekend. And I will see you next Friday for card making and then next Saturday for another scrapbook layout. And thank you very much for joining me. I do appreciate having everybody on here. So have a lovely weekend. Take care. Bye for now. Oh, who is the photo? Sorry, Sue. The photos, that's my grandmother, my father's mother, and that's my father's sister, my Auntie Vivian, and her husband, Uncle Jake. So, yeah, and then this photo here, I was saying before that I'm not quite sure who this gentleman exactly is. I've been told he is possibly a cousin to my grandmother. She didn't have very many family members, so that's a very good, possibility. His surname may have been Parr, P-A-R-R, but I haven't found that name within the family archives as yet. So I'm not 100% certain. I don't even know whether my father actually even knows. But I thought that fitted in well with this cause for a celebration because it looks like he's making a toast to the couple. So that's who the photos are of, and this will go into my heritage album. So as I said before, thank you very much for joining me and participating and asking those questions. So take care, have a great weekend, and bye for now.